Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Anewgo of New Home Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Anya Chrisanthon, and joining me today is a returning guest. Many of you probably already know him, Ryan Taft, who is the founder of Impact 88. And today we are celebrating and discussing Ryan's brand new book, Revenue Getter. So, Ryan, first of all, congratulations on a brand new book. When do you have the time? I see you all over social media. You're always on the go. You're doing the thing. When do you have the time to write a book?
That has been asked of me so many times, and the answer to it is I wrote this entire book on an airplane or in a hotel, and that is literally the only time that I have to do. I am actually most productive in those two environments because what else are you going to do? Watch a movie? Probably
That's
not.
right. Unless you're sitting on the airplane watching a movie and crying, there's no excuse, right? Then the alternative is to work on my presentation. So, or
Yeah.
for you, obviously writing a book. So,
No, yeah. No, I can't think. I don't think I can't remember a time where I've cried on an airplane. I can't. Well, that's not true. I think maybe over delays that's possible. But thank you for having me back. I always love our chats.
thank you for being back. I feel the same way. So, Ryan, for those listeners who may not know who you are, if they've been living under the rock, tell us a little bit of your background. What is it that you do at Impact 88? And of course, tell us a little bit about your brand new book.
Oh my gosh, there's a lot there. So I founded Impact 88 last year. We had a fantastic first year. We are a performance improvement company, so we work with salespeople, sales leaders, helping them level up. And some of our mantras in training are don't be a weirdo. It's not about you. And if you can help improve someone else's life, that's the highest calling. So there you go. As far as background, I've been in the home building industry. This is my 25th year in home building. I cannot believe how that happened. Just boom, gone. And as far as the book goes, I'm trying to answer all your questions in the order. As far as the book goes, I think there's a huge need in the world of sales leadership, not just in home building, but in sales leadership in general. Because most people, when they get hired into sales leadership, it usually goes something like this. Hey, you were pretty good at sales. Why don't you come on board in leadership and get other people to do the same thing, huh? I mean, maybe they don't talk like that, but that's the idea. There's no onboarding that teaches someone how to coach and skill develop and train people. So what you have is you have a bunch of managers who are managing processes, they're managing numbers, and they're directing people. You need to get more sales. We need you to do this thing. We need to do better at that. And no one's actually developing anyone, not because they don't want to. I think the intention is people want to do that, but they
Hmm.
don't know how to because you don't get put into a class called Learn How to Develop People 101. So the
Yes.
book is the answer to that, and our certification program that goes along with it is the other answer to that.
Love that. So, in the book, you say what happens when a team is feeling like they're behind, right? What's the common, most wrong move that sales leaders actually make at that moment? And
Eh.
why does it actually reduce revenue instead of helping the team get ahead?
Okay, so there's two answers to this, right? There's two paths that people tend to take when, oh my gosh, we're behind and it's correct that we got to get sales. The wrong answer is, right, we come down hard and we start managing with an iron fist and we really push. And my experience is when you push somebody, they tend to push back,
Yes.
right? So that's one. And then the other way that we see it happen is we go, okay, we need sales. All right, everyone, let's do a sales contest. And we're going to give out money and spin the wheel, right? And we do this big old thing. And that works for a certain percentage of people, but there's a certain percentage of people on the team who don't care about sales contests. I know that sounds crazy, but they don't. They're just like, that's not my motivator. That's not, it's like if you read the Five Love Languages book, right? It
Mm-hmm.
talks about how everyone gives and receives love differently. Well, everyone is motivated differently. So
Yep.
to me, a sales contest where you're just giving away cash is sort of the shortcut to motivation that doesn't really touch everybody. It touches a couple. But those are the two responses. But nowhere in there is there developing anyone to actually do the job better. Just
Yes.
carrot and stick is what it is.
Absolutely. Now, in your book, you outline six manager styles. So give us a quick kind of like symptoms. How do you know if you're being the buddy, the server, savior, slave driver, or ghost instead of being a true coach?
Yeah, okay, you've done your homework. Good job. So, looking at the first one, the buddy, I just saw this the other day, actually. The buddy is where you want to hang out. You still want to be friends, or you want to, like, hey, let's get together after work. Let's go hit the club, the bar, let's go golf. And they want to be friends. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the mentality behind the buddy is somebody who thinks, if I am friends with you, you will perform because we are friends. And
Hmm.
I will tell you that will backfire on you. And it's not developing anyone. There's no development. It's a hope strategy. The server is like a cousin of the buddy. The server's always like, I'm going to bring you coffee and I'm going to bring you breakfast and I'm going to bring you things. And they're leaning on something called the law of reciprocity that says, if I give you something, you're going to give me something back, and hopefully it's sales. There's no development in that either. The savior is probably the most common, especially in home building, right? I come into your office and I ask you this question as your manager: how can I help? Right? And your salesperson goes, oh, thank God you're here. I have the Hernandez family on lot 42 and they've got all these issues and it's so good you're here. Could you? And you're like, I'm here to save the day. And the next thing you knew, you are doing their job and you're not developing anyone. You're just putting out fires, which actually ends up being where people burn out in our industry, is that scenario.
Hmm.
It feels good. You think you're doing the right thing, but you're not. You're training them to have you solve their problems. The slave driver, I don't see as much in the companies that we work with, but I know they still exist. And that is the, I'm going to just basically, I want your numbers and your report and Saturday night, and you need to tell me what's going on. And it's, I say jump, you say how high. I used to work with a guy like this who he'd answer his phone, he'd see who it was, he'd be like, this better be good. Like, it's just someone who's I say you do, and they can never be wrong. And I've worked for a few of those. The ghost is pretty obvious. They're never in the field. You
Yep.
never see them. You just ask a salesperson, when was the last time you saw your manager? I'm like, I haven't seen him in like 6 months.
Ew.
I had a division president. You like this, Anya? I had a division president here in Phoenix ask me one time, what do you think of my sales leaders? And I said, do you want me to be honest or nice? She said, be honest. I said, how much do you pay your admin people? And she told me, I said, you should get rid of your managers and hire a couple of admin people. You'll save yourself a couple $100,000. She said, why? I said, because that's what they're doing. They're not in the field. They're just doing reports. I don't even need
Mhm.
a human to do that anymore. I can use an AI tool for that, as you know. I'm
Right.
talking to you. You know all this. But a coach, on the other hand, is someone who's in the field and they're developing. And the three favorite words of a coach are do it again. That's the differentiator. Are you saying those words? And if you're not, you're
Mhm.
probably one of the other five.
So if somebody's listening right now and they're like, uh-oh, I think I'm one of those five.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the first shift that you would want them to practice this week to really change that?
Well, the first thing they need to do is pre-order the book, right? That's the first thing. But anyway, that's another thing. But as far as practice goes, is I would be looking at what is the micro skill that I could get someone to improve on, even just 10%. Because if I can improve one little micro skill,
Mhm.
10%, you will see the needle of sales start to move in the right direction. So if you're listening and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not coaching, first off, who on your team could you get to just improve a little bit? 10%, you're already better than most coaches out there, right? Most people aren't even getting 0%. They're just not even in, they're not coaching. So that'd be the first thing I'd look at. There's a lot to unpack with that, though, which is, well, are you in the field? How do you know what micro skills to even coach? What does that look like? So I look at people's calendars.
Mhm.
Do they have time blocked off in their calendars for coaching? Most don't. Well, if I look at someone's 30-day snapshot of their calendar and they're a manager, here's what I tend to see: purchasing meeting, marketing meeting, starts meeting, closings meeting, new communities meeting. That's what I see. And in there, I'm like, all right, show me where you're actively coaching people.
Right.
And the answer is, oh, that's not on my calendar. So this is the whole point, Anya. This is why I wrote the book. I have forever believed that management is not the direction of people. It's the development of people. It falls under the sort of the concept that circles in churches that says, if you build the people, build the church, right? The same thing is true with a sales team. If you build the skills of your sales team, they will build your revenue ladder. So revenue getter really is coaching.
And so in your book, you lay out this repeatable four-step coaching approach,
Yeah.
which is explain, exhibit, execute, and
Evaluate.
evaluate.
Hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess you did write the book, you know your stuff. So can you walk us through what does great looks like for each one of those steps? Like what do
Yeah.
we
Well, so let me give you the idea of where this came from. This isn't new as far as concept goes of how we learn. If you go back to the cone of learning, Edgar Dale, right, I think it was 1969, he developed this idea that says we will retain learnings based off of our level of participation, right? If you only hear it, it's like 10%. If you see it and hear it, it's 20%. If you write it down, it increases. And it goes all the way up to active participation takes you up to 90% retention.
Right.
And we know this instinctively because if you've ever had someone try to show you how to create a formula in a spreadsheet, you're like, well, let me get on the computer and do it because you know you learn better that way.
Right.
So the framework, what we call the 4E coaching method, is designed to hit the three core learning modalities: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. And it's
Mhm.
all goes back to the cone of learning from Dale, which is in the book. But the repeatable framework is this, is that I'm going to use E1, which is I'm going to explain. So I'm going to explain the micro skill issue that we're going to work on. Now, I don't
Mhm.
just say, "Hey, you sucked at this," because that's right, that's no bueno. What I am going to do is I'm going to tell you what I saw happen, why it matters, and what I'd like to see differently. So I'm telling you. And this is unfortunately, Anya, where most people think training and coaching starts and stops, right? They get in front of a sales team, they've got a new addendum they got to introduce. You've been in these. Okay, everyone, we're going to need everyone to start inserting this addendum into the contract. We need an initial in the middle page and then a signature on the bottom. Is everyone good? And raise your hand. You got it? And then how many of them come in correct the next Monday? Zero. Why? Because they only told them, they only explained. So there's three other pieces to learning. So that's E1. E2, when we move over to exhibit, hits the visual aspect. So in this one, I'm going to show you the micro skill that I saw, and then I'm going to show you the micro skill I'd like to see. So for
Mhm.
example, if let's say when someone's asking for the sale, I notice that they lift their shoulder when they ask. So is this, do you guys want to take it off the market? And they do this thing. I'll explain to them what I saw with the shoulder, why it matters, and what I'd like to see differently. And then I will step into their shoes and I will say, here's what it looked like.
Mhm.
Here's what I'd like it to look like. Are you ready to take the home off the market? Did you see the shoulders? Right. So there's that visual.
Mhm.
And this is a question that usually comes up is where does most coaching fail? If they even get this far, this next piece is where the majority of sales coaches and managers fall apart like a $2 suitcase. It's in E3, which is where I want them to execute.
Mhm.
Now it's you do it, you try it. Here's the challenge. Salespeople don't want to role play, they don't want to practice. And what they will do is they will distract a manager. Well, I already do that. If you just saw me when I was having an off day and, but I do this. I do this all the time. And you know what? They don't do it there's no way they do it all the time. It's just, I don't want to be put on the spot. And this is where the
Yeah.
buddy and the server and the ghost and those, they will never get to this because they don't understand accountability. And most of Revenue Getter is not just how to coach, it's how to hold people accountable to be better than they were before you coached them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Accountability is huge. And so, I mean, one of the challenges with accountability and coaching is that we're so busy as sales managers. There's so many different fires you have to put out, so many different reports. So if I'm a sales manager, I'm like, all right, I only have 15 minutes to spend with this individual. How
Yeah.
would you run your training so that you do hit all four of those?
Yeah. Well, first off, you have to know them, right? You have to know what you're doing. So a lot of coaching has planning that comes before that moment. So we talk about gathering intel so you know the micro skills that you'll be coaching. One of the biggest mistakes is we try and jam 20 pounds of coaching into a 1 pound bag. We tell them way too many things to fix. I just want to work on the shoulder lift. That's it. So micro skill. And you've got to get the 4E coaching method down to where you already know where you're going. You're not like, what's my next step? What do I do? What's E3? Anybody E3? You can't do that. You literally have to be able to go, okay, Here's what I saw. Here's why it matters. Here's what I need you to do. Let me show you what I saw you do. Let me show you what I want it to look like. Got it? Fabulous. Let me have you do it. Perfect. Then E4, evaluate. I'm going to tell them what went right, ask them for their insights, and say, what do you do next time? And I could probably get 3 or 4 cycles of
Mhm.
doing the 4E coaching method done inside of 15 minutes because it's not a big training. Micro skill doesn't take a lot of time. It takes a lot of intentionality.
Mhm. Yeah.
Good question.
And so what somebody's like, well, you know what? We have this trainer coming in and he's going to do the training. But you're very blunt in your book where you say that essentially daily trainings and daily discipline will outperform versus where you see the numbers dip and you bring the trainer and it kind of like fixes all your problems, right? So why do you believe that this kind of a micro coaching daily habit beats that every time?
Well, because you don't build a habit in attending a seminar. I was actually backstage with Les Brown, the famous motivational speaker. And Les Brown looked at me and he said, "You'll never learn how to ride a bike in a seminar." It was sort of random, right? Like, I was like, does he have Tourette's right now? What is going on? But I thought about it later and he's 100% right. So you might even have a company trainer who works for your company, but
Hmm.
they're spread between all the divisions typically, or they're spread between all the salespeople. Sales managers cannot give up the responsibility of developing their teams and hope that the outside trainer, right? Like that's me. Like I come in and I do outside training. But
Right.
there's 3 things that make skill development happen. One is good training, 2 is coachable salespeople, and 3 is sales leaders who will practice with them and hold them accountable so it becomes habit. I'm not going to build a habit if I go to the gym one time and see a trainer one time a month, not even once every other week. You're there all the time. You're doing it constantly. So it becomes what I call a reflex response. And so it's just repetition. They talk about the 10,000 hour rule, right? Do something for 10,000 hours, you're a master of it. That's a
Mhm.
little extreme, but what you do a lot is what shows up unconsciously. And you can't do that by doing it every once in a while.
Mhm.
That's why do it again are my favorite words.
And what you do again and again, it becomes culture. And so you talk in your book specifically about protecting your culture. So, are there any early warning signs that maybe culture is actually slipping in your organization?
Yeah, 100%. One is that you have what I would argue is uncoachability. I'll give you an example of this. I have a fun story. There was a guy in the company I worked with in Las Vegas, and the sales he nodded and smiled during training, but you knew he was the guy who was talking trash about training, about the company. Like he was just a negative person, and he'd run off multiple people. And when you start to see one person who is that person, then what happens is you as the leader start to get tested. Your culture standards will be tested in that moment. And
Hmm.
what happens, especially as a market is normalizing and doing the things we're seeing it do, is do you fall apart like a $2 suitcase on your culture standards? And here's what happens. They go, well, he makes a lot of sales. And so here's how I hear that. Okay, so you're willing for everyone to hate your company, hate your leadership style, just so you can get some sales. Good plan. You and I both know this is a horrible plan. And so
Right.
and look, someone might start off being really good, really coachable, but do people get soured? Yes. That's why your attention and your strategy on how you build people and how you develop people is the culture builder. I'm going to pour into you so you pour into yourself and into your people. But if you don't see me and I'm not pouring into you, and every time you see me, I have something I'm telling you did wrong and you need to change, and I'm just some guy who's managing you, and I'm just going to be honest, nobody wants to be managed. They want to be
No,
developed.
they do. There's a chapter in your book that's called Trust but Verify. Oh, actually, just verify.
Right.
So, what does that verification process actually looks like without creating the culture of micromanaging
Yeah,
somebody?
this is the key, right? Because you don't want to be a micromanager. You want to be a micro developer. That's a different story. Here's what my thought process is, especially right now. And if you're listening to this and you're a sales leader, if you're new, right, you're a year into this,
Mhm.
you probably haven't had this happen yet. But if you've been around for a couple of minutes, this has happened. At some point in your career, you're going to get called into the office. You're going to get the email, you're going to get the phone call that says, "Hey, we need to talk." And it's your division president, it's your CEO, it's your company owner, it's somebody that you're like, Houston, do we have a problem? And you're wondering, is this the meeting where I lose my job? That will happen. Every one of us has been through this. It's not whether you will have that conversation or not. It's a matter of how prepared are you for that conversation. Here's where most people go wrong with that, Anya, is they go into that conversation and they say things like, well, we're doing the best we can, fail. Or, you know what? I mean, marketing, I've talked to them about getting us some better relief, you just shifted blame. Well, I mean, it's, if we could just get some more incentives, you just told them to give money away from the bottom line. Like these are the wrong answers. And so what we want to do here is we want to know that our team is taking every sale as far as it will go. And the way you do that can be fun, right? I told a group the other day, they said, well, our team's really struggling with how to share with someone why now is the right time to buy a home. And I said, here's a framework, have them write it down, have them go record it, practice it over and over, run a contest on it. Who can do this on the fly, right? Being caught doing it right. So there, that makes it fun, not micromanaging. And then I would literally make sure, as the sales leader, at some point in every conversation with everyone on the team, I would ask the question, why is now time to buy a home? And have them be able to rattle it off. And if they can't, micro skill development, let's get you up there. Because I want to sit in front of that division president, that company owner, and be able to say, well, what I can tell you is the notes in our CRM are all story based. We are doing the training that we've paid for. I've tested every one of them on it. We ran a contest on why buy now. They all know how to do it. And I know for a fact we're asking for the sale on the first visit because I'm getting trackers that show that. So if there's a problem, it is not because of my team. You have to have certainty in that meeting. You can't walk in going, yeah, we're trying. That didn't work. So that's why I say trust but verify. Actually, just go verify.
Interesting.
I get all excited about this stuff. You can tell. It's the
I
power.
can tell. I can tell. Now, Ryan, obviously you see so many different people when it comes to coaching. And so in the new book, you cover some of the toughest profiles for salespeople and scenarios as far as training goes. So can you
Yeah.
talk to us about maybe two or three hardest types of reps to coach and maybe some of the mistakes that coaching leaders or sales leaders make with each one of those types?
Yeah. So one is when you look at tough scenarios or tough profiles, one of the toughest that I see, and I just had this conversation yesterday, literally yesterday, is when you're on the floor as a sales rep and then you get promoted to management and now you're managing the people that you used to go to lunch with and complain about the leadership.
Hmm.
That's right. Now you're one of the leadership. And that person usually struggles with the disconnect of how they no longer are able to have, and it's just kind of weird. It's like running into your ex. It's just weird. Right? Yeah, yeah. Everyone listening is like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And so the advice I give to them is that relationships are built on agreements. And so if you're in that spot, you have to be able to say to that new person, listen, I still care about you. I still want to be friends. And my role has changed, which means our conversations are going to change a little bit. I'm cool with that. Are you cool with that? Does that make sense? And we get an agreement on how we proceed forward in our relationship, not hope that we can avoid it and that it's weird or make the mistake of assuming that it's going to be the same because it's not. It's just not. So that's one of the weird ones. The other toughest scenario, I'll give you this one. Sometimes you'll do a coaching session
Mhm.
and the person will lose it.
Oh.
Yeah, I've had this happen a couple times. I call this the walkout or the emotional outburst, right? Well, something happens. And I've
Hmm.
had this happen to me several times. I was doing a training in Oklahoma City, I think it was, and we were about to go into a practice session. And I don't put people on the spot and make them feel weird. This person just was really uncomfortable. And I said, all
Hmm.
right, let's get going. And I was walking around, and there was a salesperson in the sales office standing there by himself. And I was like, where's your partner? And he goes, and he points out the window, and I see this car drive away. They literally got in their car and left.
Wow.
Yeah. So sometimes you'll have people who walk out. And if it happens, I give strategies in the book about what to do with that so you don't make that even worse. And it
Hmm.
might be giving them some time to cool off, whatever it needs to happen. Here's another scenario that we tend to see is when you as the coach are having an off day, right? I've got a
Hmm.
coaching scheduled with you, and right before I pulled up to your community, I got a call from my senior VP of sales and marketing, and he or she just lit me up over an incentive that I approved, and I now feel like I'm the worst manager on the planet, and I'm walking into this coaching session where I'm supposed to develop you.
Right.
Two things. You either have to learn how to do a mental reset right there, or you need to reschedule because you can't come into that damaged because you're no good to that person. So one of those two things has to happen. So I go through those scenarios that I've experienced over the last 20 plus years, and there isn't a scenario I haven't dealt with. I told somebody in Raleigh 2 years ago, said, "This just isn't real. This is BS. And I know how to sell. I've been doing this forever," and picked up her purse and just walked out.
Okay.
Yep. Now, these are one-offs. That's
Yeah, that
99 times out of 100, not even. That's happened to me, like I'd say walkouts. I can think of in the last 15 years, 3 times that's happened. But
it's that's crazy that people actually behave that way. I bet you have some fun stories from the road.
I'm never amazed at people. I had one person who I went out there to go coach her on asking for the sale, which was weird because she went through training with me back in 2001,
Mhm.
and come to find out, it wasn't that she forgot how to ask for the sale. Her abusive father was back in her life,
Oh,
and he would always abuse her when she would ask for things. And
mm,
so now I'm in a oh, okay, we're in a therapy session is what we're in. And that is a form of coaching sometimes, as we know.
wow.
Yeah. So you experienced a lot. That's why I wrote the book. I'm like, people think coaching is just go get more sales. Okay, okay. It's not.
Well, I mean, if somebody walked out in my organization like that, it'd be like, is that somebody we need to hold on to? But sometimes I find that some of the top producers can actually be the biggest resistors to coaching because they're like, I know what I'm doing. I don't need this. So, do you have any tips on handling that kind of personality?
100%. This is very common, and we tend to avoid our top producers because we think they got it, they're good, I don't need to spend time with them.
Right.
I would disagree with that because if you're not spending time with them, your competitor is, and they're trying to recruit them. That's normal. Here's a fun story. At my former company, we worked with a guy you might know. Do you know Patrick Crocetta?
No, the
Okay.
name sounds familiar, but I don't think I.
Really good dude, really good dude. And unbeknownst to me, he called me and my former boss and asked us both the same question. And I tell this story in the book. And this was this scenario. It was, hey, what do you do if you have a top producer? And this is exactly what you just said. You have a top producer who does not want to get any coaching. And I said, well, how do you know he doesn't want any coaching? And he says, well, I went into his office to do coaching. The guy's name is Mike. And Mike said, "Why are you even here? Like, why are you talking to me? Like, I'm your top guy. Go work with someone that needs you." And it's like pretty bold to tell your VP, like, take a hike, buddy. And Patrick was so thrown off. He's like, what do I do? And he got advice from me and my former boss. And we actually gave the exact same advice, which was good that we were on that same page. And here's what the advice was. I said, well, let me ask you a question. This is my first question. I said, what is the name of that meeting on your calendar? And he looked it up. And it was called something like the B lead conversion meeting.
Hmm.
And I said, all right, so talk to me. Like, who's that meeting for? You or him? And he said, well, clearly me. I said, okay, so he's being invited to a meeting that is not for him. You already got resistance right there. I said, tell me why your top guy, Mike, would want to get better. And the answer was, doesn't everybody want to make more money? I'm like, I don't know. I said, you should probably find that out. So I encouraged him to take this guy out to a coffee, something off-site, something neutral location. Don't bring him into the division office. Don't do it at the community. Take him out and just get to know him and find out if there would be any reason why he would want to do more. It's like selling a home. Why do you want to move? And so
Right.
he did, and he calls me back and he says, man, that was the best conversation. I said, what'd you learn? And it turns out he had 2 daughters that he wanted them to go to college because nobody in his family had been to college before or something along those lines. And he said, I want to have my daughters go, but I want them to go debt free. And because of the downturn in 2008, right in that time frame, he was behind his financial goals. His oldest daughter he had set up. His youngest, her name was Jessica, if I remember correctly, she wasn't up to speed. And so Patrick got the gap of what it was. And now he comes back and he says, okay, that's it. And I asked Patrick, I said, well, what's the new name of this coaching session? And he said, as you could guess, Jessica's college fund session. And now you have coaching that's for someone, not to someone.
Hmm.
And most people don't have any idea why someone wants to get better. They just want them to get better. And I tell them, I stand up on stages all the time, Anya, and I say, let me just, in front of company owners, I'll say it. I'll say, I'm just going to clue you in. Your sales team doesn't care about your company. They don't care about the company goals. They're not interested in your revenue, your profit, what you want. They might nod and smile, but I'm here to tell you that is not what is going to motivate them, unless they want to be in leadership. But even that is self serving. So if you don't know your team's motivation for wanting to get better, your coaching is for you by default.
Yeah, that's interesting that you have to figure out what's going to move the needle for that person. Yeah, it's
It's more work. What I'm suggesting is more work. I mean, if you read the book, you're like, I don't know if I have time for this. And my point is this is, well, what are you doing? If you don't
right.
have time for coaching and doing these things, what are you filling your time with? And here's what it is. Stupid meetings that don't generate revenue. Period. That's why I call it revenue getter.
Hmm.
Imagine watching a football game. And you know how they'll pan the camera over to the sideline where the coach is, right? And the coach has got like the clipboard up and, he's kind of calling plays out. And, oh, it looks like the coach is really. And imagine if they can't pan the camera over to find the coach. And they're like, where'd the coach go? We can't find him. He's not on the field. Where is the coach? And then the camera pans up to the executive offices way up top. And they get a drone to zoom in on that. And he's in the middle of a marketing meeting while the freaking game, he'd be fired like that.
Right.
And most people aren't where the game is being played. They're
Yeah,
just not.
that's
They're in
very
meetings.
true. That's a great analogy there. Now, Ryan, you end the book with a three-tiered plan for immediate actions, your next 30-day plan, and an ongoing habit. So can you give us one example for each? So if I'm listening, I'm like, okay, for the next 48 hours, what's one thing I can do? In the next 30 days, is there a system I can implement? And then ongoing, what's that one habit that I need to
Oh,
really drill down?
well, you're asking me to take a whole lot of content and put it into a small amount. So let me just. I'm gonna poll. So here's the first one: is you have to assess the coachability of your team, like
Hmm.
stat, because trying to coach someone who's not coachable is like trying to push a rope uphill. It's
Hmm.
frustrating for the rope and for you. And I just use a 1 to 10 scale. I ask leaders all the time 1 to 10. 10 is I'm coachable. Coach me. Someone coach me. How do I learn? And a 1 is I know everything. If you got a bunch of people that aren't coachable, you could go do coaching all you want, but you might have a culture issue and a staffing issue before you ever coach anybody. It's just, you got to kind of figure that out. So that's one. Literally, I'm like, all right, that's it. I would get used to looking at micro skills,
Hmm.
not macro skills. And micro skills are just very, very small little, like, here's an example of a micro skill: shaking your head no when you quote price.
Mm.
So the price on it's going to be about 1.2 million. I'm like, why are we shaking our head no? So
Mhm.
that might be it. It's not the whole presentation. It's that little tweak. How do we do that? So that's one. Inside of the next 30 days, I tell people that they should work on calendar management, proactively claim the territory on your calendar, and in there write down who, what, how, why, where, and when. So it doesn't just say busy. It says, I'm going to go out to Pinecrest. I'm coaching Brian Robb on asking for the sale. We're down in sales, and his conversion rate is 10% below everyone else's, right? It's very specific.
Mhm.
So I would be looking at your calendar, because you show me your calendar and I will show you what you value as a leader, as a human, frankly. So that's huge. Let's see, ongoing. So one of the things people do is they mistake calls, like these conversations, which would be called, like, I call them pipeline impact calls. And this is
Mhm.
where you and I are discussing who's in the pipeline, what sales are coming, what do we need to do to get them over the finish line. Very common manager, salesperson conversation, right?
Mhm.
The mistake that sales leaders make is they assume that that is coaching.
Mhm.
That is not coaching. And you can tell because nowhere in there is there the words do it again. There's no 4E coaching method. There's no practice. It's just, okay, what do you need to get them over? Well, I think if we could, do this and we change that, maybe if we swap this out. Okay, why don't you tell them this, get them that, and see what we get back and whatever. That's just collaborating strategy. That's not coaching.
Mhm.
So what I tell people is while you're having those calls, if you ask enough of the right questions about the interaction, like for example, if I say, well, what objections did they have? And they say, well, they really didn't like the size of the backyard. And I say, okay, well, how did you handle that? in that conversation, I am going to hear gaps in skill, most likely, right? I'm going to hear, oh, they're not getting the story. They're not asking for the sale. Oh, they're weak in their follow-up. I hear that. That is intel gathering. And so for the long term, you want to not just be getting sales, you want to be developing people, right? So I'm
Mhm.
listening for where are the skill gaps, micro skills specifically, and that then populates my coaching sessions next week or tomorrow or whenever I see this person. So they're two different events: collaborative calls to get sales, coaching sessions to develop skills. And people combine those all the time.
Wow, as a sales manager, I think I had never the full appreciation of all the things they got to do, and now it's you got to be a full-on psychologist, psychiatrist,
Well, yeah,
the whole thing.
you
So,
do. You do.
so
But Steve Jobs said it best. He said the knowing what to say no to is more powerful than knowing what to say yes to. I have a sales leader that texted me the other day. Her name's Janice, and Janice said, she's in my revenue getter mastermind group that we're doing this year. And she said, I'm so excited. I had a coaching session planned on my calendar, and another department head told me I needed to cancel it because this meeting was more important. And I said, what happened? She goes, well, it might be more important to her, but it's not more important to me. So I kept my coaching session and they rescheduled the meeting. I'm like, boom, you train people how to treat you.
yeah.
Without these managers developing people, we're hoping they get better,
Hmm.
but they're not. I got a guy, I tell a story in the book. This was from Chelsea Timmons. Chelsea had this guy who had been selling homes for 30 years, and he told her, picture like the walking Texas cliche, right? Big old mustache. He's got the boots and the big old belt. And he's like, sweetheart, I've been selling homes for 30 years. I know what I'm doing, right? Like the worst thing you could say to somebody. And she's like, oh, that's cute. Do it again. And she was just like on it. But the problem was that guy had 30 years of time on the job. He didn't have 30 years of experience because the guy's the same sales guy he was in year one, guaranteed. So time doesn't make you better, it might actually make you worse.
Yeah.
Coaching and development with practice makes you better. And if we can get that figured out, man, I'm telling you, we can create some superstars in this industry. And it makes the manager's job easier too, by the way, over time.
Of course, I can imagine once you have the foundation and the habits and everything else, but I bet it's not an easy task to get it going.
That's right.
So, as we wrap up this conversation, two questions for you. So, one is if you could just, wave that magic wand and get every single salesperson to kind of adopt that one belief from this book, what would it be?
A salesperson or sales leader from this
Sales
book?
leader. Sorry,
Sales leader.
sales leader.
It would be what I said in the beginning. Management is not the direction of people, it is the development of people. That's the primary job because if you develop the people, you stop getting the same calls and the same problems.
Right.
That would be the belief.
Perfect. So, who should buy this book? You guys, I will have this book linked in the show notes so you can easily click right here in the conversation. But who should buy this book, Ryan?
Anybody who's in charge of managing somebody else, or if you're an up and coming leader. And frankly, you know what? I've been thinking about this, Anya, because I've had a chance to really work with some teams on this content.
Mhm.
And I'm almost of the opinion now that salespeople, if they're responsible for practicing with other salespeople, that
Mhm.
because if they can learn how to coach it, they will get better at it. So, but ideally, I wrote it for sales leaders who are responsible for developing other people and not even sales leaders. You could be an engineer who's in charge of the performance of your team. So if
Mhm.
you are responsible for other people from a leadership perspective, and you think coaching might actually be something you should know, then this is the book. And it's not written for home building specific, it's for anybody in that position. Marketing, sales. If you're managing somebody, this will help.
Love this. So, you guys, make sure to pick up a copy of Revenue Getter. It's going to be out as we speak. So, again, the easy way to do it is the link is right in the show notes right there. And Ryan, before I let you go, was there anything that I did not ask you today or we didn't cover that you think is important for our listeners to understand?
Your questions are so good. Like you pulled out like a whole lot. So the only thing I think is that the question is when you read the book, is that enough? Sometimes people ask, is that enough? And my answer to that is probably not, right? Because here's what people do is they read a book And then they go, oh, that was good. And then they put it on the shelf and it becomes shelf help. So how do you
Mhm.
put it into action? Well, that's why the 30-day action plan and all that is in the back of the book. But then we
Right.
also have our Revenue Getter certification program that if you want tactical hands-on coaching with that, then you should check out revenuegetter.com, where we have the book and the mastermind program all laid out there.
Awesome. So you guys, I'll be sure to link to all of that. And Ryan, if somebody wants to connect with you personally, learn more about Impact 88, where do they go to find you?
Well, my home address, no, I'm kidding. LinkedIn, either Ryan Taft or search Impact 88, Instagram. We're on all the socials, doing all the things. But our website for Impact is really full of everything that we do, especially with Cassie and Jeremiah and our whole team. Lindsay, who's, wait till you see what she's about to roll out. But teaser, impact88.com, all spelled out, no numbers, just impact88.com.
Awesome. So you guys, you heard it here. Go run, pick up your book right now. It doesn't matter if you're in sales leadership or if you're just in charge of people. So some really, really great habits there. So Ryan, thank you so much for coming on again. It's always such pleasure to talk to you. I could talk to you for hours and hours, and
Ditto.
I learned so much from you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks for having me on. Let's do it again.
Absolutely. Talk to you very soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.